Please rise. Court is now in session.
Love, strength, Fighting for Justice is the podcast. Fighting spell with a PA. Serving Philly in the counties and the tri-states. Speak to change people's minds, yeah, we don't see hate. If you ever want to question law, yeah, let's debate.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Fighting with Justice. Jesus, I done messed it up. Fighting for Justice. I got too many things in my head right now. Jonathan Luff.
Dave Stronfo.
And today we have a very special guest. I'm so proud to be here. I don't even know where to start. I'm just going to say it. Councilwoman Kendra Brooks, thank you for your time.
Welcome,
we appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
This is amazing.
I don't even want to sing your praises, because why don't you sing your praises right now? Let us know who you are. Let us know what you do. Let us know your job description. Look at the people. Tell them who you are.
All right. So I am Councilmember Kendra Brooks. I'm the first ever elected Working Families Party elected official in the state of Pennsylvania, over 70 to 100 years. I ran on the third party ticket as an independent with the goal of GOP out, Working Families Party in. The way City Council was set up, there are 17 City Council members. There are 10 district seats, 7 at large, and there are 2 seats that in the city charter says are reserved for a minority party. And those 2 seats have traditionally went to Republican candidates. So I ran as a Working Family Party elected in 2019 and won one of the seats that were reserved for a minority party. And it's been super exciting. Like, I ran on a platform around public education, housing as a human right, criminal justice reform, and just fighting for real people in communities. Because so often, in politics, they get left out. They become talking pieces. One of the first things that I found in council when I'm debating some of my colleagues, you're talking about money, I'm talking about people. So when money and people, we're not talking the same language. I want to know what it's going to look like for a family that's making $20,000 a year with 2 children. If your money doesn't line up to the needs of that particular family, I have a problem with it. And that's why I ran for office. It's been an interesting time. We came in during COVID. I was elected in 19, took office in 20, pandemic hit in March. So 3 months in council, we were working from home, trying to figure out how to do virtual legislation with new staff that I just hired. They had to Google everything. I pull out, go back to the office, get the charters. We were trying to figure it out. But, I was committed to making sure I satisfied why I ran for office. Being a Black woman from North Philadelphia, single mom, worked my way through college, I understand issues from a different lens. It's not about just the policy. It's about being an impacted person and understanding the struggle and knowing people that are currently still in the struggle and what does it mean to really create a city of our dreams for working class people in Philadelphia. And so often they're left out. We talk about big dollars, big money, center city,
sure,
the haves and the have-nots, eds and meds. No one talks about the people who have to receive those services.
Sure.
And the impact of the investments that we make on those services or corporations. How does that impact everyday working people in Philadelphia?
Sure.
So that's who I am.
So
I'm about that life. That's what I do.
So the one thing that I think is absolutely awesome is you are a third party candidate. Is that correct?
Yes.
I did want to make sure I'm not misspeaking. So
third party.
Feel free to correct me.
So I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican.
Awesome.
My party is Working Families Party.
When I looked that up, I brought it up to Jonathan. I was like, I'm pretty sure she's third party, which is amazing because we've brought it up on the podcast before. One of the ways that we truly kind of think there can only really be change is if we start incorporating more parties, right? Nobody seems to work together because they don't have to, right? You take this position, I take this position, and then that's it, right? Nothing happens. We hold our ground. When you have a third party, that kind of mixes it up because now these 2 people have to come to you and say, hey, we have this idea, and you can say, one of you have to convince me.
Right.
So just because I do like to educate our viewers as much as we can, what's the party stand for? Right? What are your values?
Our values are grounded in the things that support working people. So Working Families Party is a national party. We have elected people across the country. They also have working family endorsed.
I saw that.
So
Fetterman is one of them, I believe, right?
Fetterman is one.
Okay.
A bunch of our state reps are Working Families Party endorsed. And City Council is myself, Helen Gim, and Isaiah Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Are all WFP endorsed. And what we do is our platform is centered around the needs of working people, whether it's housing, whether it's education, whether it's fair wages. One of the things we fought for was fair work weeks, paid sick leave, just the basic things that support working families. And the thought is like there are a lot of like-minded folks that want to see real change, but our current two-party system hasn't allowed an elected person to be able to stand up and fight for those things in a way that they are non-beholden. So like I said, I'm one of the things, my favorite person is Ella Baker and Shirley Chisholm, because Shirley Chisholm is unbought and unbossed, and I live by that. I don't owe anybody anything. You could be mad, but that's it.
Right.
I got here knocking doors, talking to people, and raising money from folks who are everyday working people, not big corporate checks, not PACs and all that. The PACs that supported me were PACs of working organizations that had to scrape it up from $50, $100 donations.
If we're gonna be honest, right, like it puts you at a disadvantage, right? Because those $1 million PACs, those $1 billion PACs, you grind it. It takes you so long, so much work to individually put together millions of dollars at 50 at a time. Yes, it's a lot of people, but it creates such a demand, right? Everybody's going to expect the world. And what I feel like as public, public officers, that's what we all do. We all work for the public, right? So when people come to us, there's always a fire to put out. It doesn't matter. Like as soon as you put out the one, there's 15,000 more are coming right behind it. And it doesn't allow you to do anything but like you're so busy and you're grinding so often that like it's not actually sustainable for very long, right? So what I suggest is you need to partner with people with money who have ideals that align with yours, because the only way I really think this works is if some of us make enough money that you have some millionaires in your pocket too.
I totally. So we do have some well-off people that can have big checks.
No, they definitely must.
Yes.
And but the system, the government, the idea of the government is that theoretically the only reason they're necessary is because unfortunately some people make bad decisions. Right. There are parents who may be struggling with drugs, and they now their children we have to take care of. Right. Where's that money going to come from? It has to come from our tax dollars. Right. Those who can afford it must pay for those who can't. There's no other way. I understand that the rich don't like that, and as I creep up there, I start to understand why. Because it does hurt to see your tax numbers hit almost half of your money annually. It's not fun. I'm not gonna lie. It's not fun, but a necessary evil it is. Because without it, I don't see how we are supposed to keep our ideals funded, because we have to connect it to what they're talking about, right? And so it's a delicate balance where I wish we could work together. I wish that the sides could actually say, listen, let's do what's best for everybody, instead of everybody's response being, well, at least I'm not that.
Right.
I'm tired of people in all parties saying, well, why should
least
I
I'm
vote
not
for
Republican.
you? Well, at least I'm not
At
Republican.
least I'm not Democrat.
Right. I'm like,
it's not a
everybody's
it's not a
saying
policy.
that literally I am just better. Like I'm just as good as I need to be to win. That's why we keep losing.
But that's a
if
problem.
we were actually
The bar is too low.
right, the bar is too low. If we picked better people and we let them tell the truth,
They're not ready for the truth.
oh, well, they're gonna get ready today.
Just simple questions. How long's your term?
4 years.
Okay, so every 4 years. All right. Give us an idea. What does just a normal day look like for you? Because I imagine it's.
rolled her eyes.
I imagine it's a lot busier than our viewers think. To be honest,
I'm
because
sure.
a lot of listen. I don't. Before today, I never met a council person, so I don't know what you do on a day-to-day basis, and I'm assuming it's a lot busier than I think.
Oh,
And I don't mean that in a bad way.
real life or just council life?
However you want to.
Listen,
Go ahead.
your life in general, then.
Yeah.
Because
All right, so I get my kids to school at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Sure.
I drop them off at 8 o'clock in the morning, head into City Hall. I usually get in around 8:15, 8:30. I do a lot of reading before everyone comes in. My My first meetings usually start around 9:30. They could be with constituents. They can be with community organizations. It could be with other city agencies. That's my first meeting. It's like 9:30. Then I might have one at 11. Sometimes they schedule me a lunch. Then I might have to go out of the building for other meetings or convenings or briefings and all of that. Then back in the building again for more meetings, some internal meetings to get my staff to check in, meet with my legal team about legislation that we're trying to move. It's also planning for future legislation or things that people have emailed us or sent us that they would like for us to work on. I meet with my constituent services team who does most of the answering of the phone calls to find out whatever's happening in the community. We also plan special events. So we recently just did like a Neighbors Out, and we had all city services that we get frequently calls about come out to Winghockin Street. And then I paid for food trucks to feed folks and had mutual aid with fresh groceries, fresh fruits and vegetables, all free to a community. Sometimes I go to other people's events around the city and partner with some of my colleagues, whether it's the sheriff's department, because they give out a lot of locks and things. And we meet with the Register of Wills, who's been doing a lot of work around tangled titles and property theft. That's a really big thing in Philly.
Okay.
So if you have siblings and your parents are deceased and you own a house, it's heir property. The title is tangled. So sometimes someone can live in a house
But not have the title?
does not have the title.
Got it.
And you don't qualify for any assistance from the city long as the title is tangled. So you can't do any major renovations or
got
anything.
it. Okay.
So, and sometimes it's like generations of folks
Yeah,
that
I
are
could
still on the
imagine.
title. So
Right,
it's like
which is another problem that we're finding a lot is that the misinformation is just that essentially, guys, you need to have wills, right? Like it is so like when the law is bad once the problem has happened, right? We need to understand what the law is for, right? It is always for the worst case scenario. If you don't need the will, fine. If ain't nobody arguing about it, fine. But you should have a will all the time because nobody knows how your kids are going to act or how your people are going to act when you're not here. The point is now we have to speculate and guess what you wanted, which we can't. You're not here anymore.
Yep. And then the real problem is, especially in this scenario, if you don't have a will, do you know how hard it is to actually get a title in your name?
Right.
You have to like
or you have to
open
pay
the case.
lawyers that you can't afford.
But even with us,
exactly.
all we're going to do is argue with each other because we're trying to prove something we can't actually prove, which is what a deceased person wants.
Well, no, not even that. Do you know the hoops you have to jump through?
Right.
When there's no will, you don't have to argue with anybody. It's just, you know how much money it costs? They have to appoint administrators. You need lawyers. Like this is all money where if you're talking about a house that you're going to have to pay people. So you either have to sell the house that you're trying to get and then what's the point, right? Or you just don't do it and then you have the problems that
And one of the government piece of it is that a lot of times families in the city or just families that can't afford it end up just losing the house.
Losing the house. Yeah, exactly.
And then it becomes property of the city to sell off and do whatever. And that's a way that people lose generational wealth. A lot of times seniors work really hard for these properties for them just to be given away or just lost through share sale. So that's like a major issue that we run into in the city. So
Just ask me on the air.
Yeah, no, I wanted to deduct it because that's what I thought because I don't do will, so I wouldn't just put it out there.
Oh, I got you.
You know what I mean? I wanted to make sure, but as of right now, we do for 500, but we'll talk. And again, the idea of this is supposed to be that we are trying to help you guys with information, so we don't need to squeeze the money out of you. If everybody comes to us. Wills aren't really, they're kind of boilerplate.
I mean, my policy, I never try to make money on a will, right?
Right.
Because it's not, all I'm trying to do is build a relationship with my client. You trust me, you get protected. And then honestly, if something happens or you need a lawyer for something serious, you get in a car accident, things like that, then you have my number, right? Because the will, making money on a will really, like he said, the will's already written. I have to put your name in it, maybe your addresses, maybe a bank account, like that's it, right? It takes me less than an hour. I'm not going to try to make money off of you to make sure you get your property.
All right. So next time I do my community event, I'll be reaching right on out to you guys so my seniors can come out. Because when we did our last event, the majority of the seniors came out around the new property assessments that just happened in Philly and making sure they were getting homestead exemption or loop. But we had information about wills, but not for them to be able to.
Yeah, my law school, so I went to Widener, but they used to do, and I'm going to forget the name, of course. All right, I'm not gonna sit here and waste time. But essentially, it's a program for vets, right?
Okay.
So and I forget the name, and I apologize, but it's just a free event, right? So the vets come, and all the law students, with the help of the professors, they help them write wills on the spot.
Interesting.
Right? So that way, because again, a lot of people think if I don't have anything, I don't need a will. You do. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
The only thing you can do is protect your. The will's not going to hurt you,
Right.
Right. So if you have it, you're protected, right? And you don't have to worry about things like how do I transfer the title, right? When you have a will, it's actually very easy then because you can go into the orphans court. You could say I have the will. You get the letters. You can transfer the title yourself. Right? You don't even need a lawyer at that point because the title company has to listen to you because now you have legal authority to transfer a title. Without that will, you do. I don't actually handle. If somebody dies without a will, I don't handle it. I've never done one. The court has to appoint lawyers and administrators, and if you have property, the only thing that happens is it gets. If you had property, you're going to have a lot less. So that's why wills for $500 is completely worth it.
It is worth. It's worth the money.
And I'm not just saying that to try to get clients. He knows. I talked to somebody today. I charge them $500 because it's been my policy since I've started. So
I mean, I think it's well worth it. I mean, if you're concerned about generational wealth or passing on all that you worked for,
Right.
And there's also
even if it's not a lot,
Right.
and I'll tell
Whatever
you,
it is,
you don't
it's
want
something.
it to just go to the city.
and the funny thing is just having
they're gonna take it.
and having a little info can help. I mean, you don't need a will to pass the house, right? So sitting down with families before someone passed away is actually because look at it this way: if you put this is free advice, ready? If you put a house in a will and it's going to somebody who's not your spouse, there will be estate taxes. Depending on who it is, it'll either be low, right? So if it's a child, it's the lowest. I think it's like 4%. If it's your friend, it's 12%, right? It really dictates. So again, if you put that house in I did it with my dad. So my dad put his house in my name, right? He's a life tenant. We're getting kind of legal, but it's important, right? Because he can live in the house. He has all the authority. When he passes away, it's my house. I don't have to pay taxes. I don't have to transfer a title. I don't have to go to court, right? And I didn't have to pay anybody to do anything. The house is mine. So it's little pieces of info like that where if people did that before someone passed away, they don't even need to talk about it, right? The house is theirs.
This might be just worth like a whole podcast.
Oh, no. Listen,
Anytime you're
There's
ready.
you can
so
call
many,
me.
I'm telling you.
You can call me anytime, but
so many seniors
yeah.
get stuck at this point right there and don't want to be bothered
Yep.
with the hassle.
Right, and here's the funny thing: if you spoke to an elderly person, I can type the will because it's very simple. Not the will. I can type the deed because it's extreme. Again, it's boilerplate because it's a simple deed, and all they have to do is make sure they sign it and notarize it and put whoever they want on it. And guess what? That house is theirs when they pass away. The title automatically transfers. You don't have to worry about it, right? Like it's done because it's been filed. Everything's done.
I told you, information. Information, guys. Don't be afraid of it.
So there are things where you wouldn't even, as a council person, you wouldn't even have to worry about, the tangled title. If they had the info just a couple, a months before they passed away, they can take care of it. The will also would be a good backup just in case, right?
You need to do both.
Exactly. But if you don't do the kind of estate planning, get a will. It's the cheapest, easiest thing to do. So.
We good on wills? We want to move on? Yes.
Listen, I just wanted to give some
That
free
was very
advice.
informative.
Hey, listen. That's what we're here for, guys. That's what we're here for.
But the one topic, and I don't, unless you had a question, because
No, go
I
ahead.
know I really want to talk about education. So, we did a couple episodes. They're not up yet, so no one has seen them. But we've talked about Shapiro. We've talked about Mastriano, kind of their separate education policies if they win, what they believe in, et cetera, et cetera. And I know you're big on education. So I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tell us what your ideas are on education.
I believe that education is something that should be afforded to everyone. And I think when we start moving into a Mastriano plan, when it's a voucher system or pay to play, so to say, for kids.
Yeah.
Right.
So it separates the have and the have-nots. So the parents or families that are already struggling will continue to not to have access to those programs, because how do you fill out the vouchers? Who makes the determination who gets the voucher? All these things. And then on the flip side, if you're talking about writing out a check to a family that's making a decision every day to eat or pay your bills.
Right, no.
You want me to get this $5,000
Right,
check to said school, and I got an eviction notice?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, bro, that's not where the money's going to go. Even if they mean well, when people have to decide between, like, that's what they're deciding between now.
And the necessity.
Yeah.
Right. They're doing that now. And when you give them money, they're probably not going to choose education first. Now, we know, because education is worth it in the long run. We know that. But it don't help you if you hungry. You can't learn something if all you can think of is I need to eat.
Correct.
So like you need to fix multiple problems.
And I feel like as a government, we need to choose education first, and we don't.
Amen.
We fund.
I've been saying
the
it as
prison
long as I've
system.
been alive.
We fund everything except education.
We wouldn't
We
need-
spend $45,000 a year to incarcerate somebody. We pay $14,000
See,
a
guys, it's
year
not just us
to
saying
educate
this.
somebody. That is criminal.
I know.
Thank you.
Criminal.
Thank you. Finally.
So just imagine that $45,000 investment into a young person over 12 years would save us. I can't even do the math.
It's a
because
lot
the
of money.
average time is what, 5 to 10. That's usually the number you hear. You know,
Yeah,
so that's
yeah,
already
yeah.
200. That's already $250,000 right there on a 5-year sentence.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we throwing them out like Skittles.
Correct.
People get 5 to 10 for anything.
And
Well,
we-
keep in mind, prison system is big business.
Oh, I
we
know.
also
It's
have.
not about. It's not about justice.
We
No,
also
it's not.
have.
It's
money.
about people making money.
Exactly. The
Well, I
fact that
also
we
found
have
out we have what, the most people on probation and parole in the country.
In the country.
That's another
In the
system
country.
of making money.
Exactly.
That's the biggest. I
like
mean,
that.
that's like
First
the
and
biggest.
foremost, here's my thing. Let's just cut right to the point. Probation and parole, cut it. No need for it. Here's the truth. If they're adults, they are only on probation or parole because they already don't follow our rules, right? So like that's kind of the point. All right. They're not going to get better at it. Here's the idea though, is that you have to watch them. No, you don't. If we catch you again, you had your chance, right? Just stay out of trouble. I shouldn't have to pay somebody, because that's why the money is, right? I have to pay a probation officer to actually watch
an
another adult.
for
Why?
what, 5 to 10 years?
To come in to then say, hey, he didn't do this. He didn't go
He
for
didn't
a
have the
job
money to
interview.
pay
He
us.
didn't pay me his probation fee. He
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
Any reason they feel, some of them, and I'm not going to, obviously, you never say all, but some of them will call you back into the court, which then they have to call their lawyer, say, I got to go back on a technical violation, which means like I really didn't do anything except not listen to my probation officer. Come back in here, pay the lawyer money I don't have, all for us to say this
Put him
brother
back on
did-
probation.
Right.
Put him back on probation.
Hey,
Extend
sir,
it.
I'm going to extend your probation. I'm going to start you all over again, because probation can last forever.
Forever.
Right? The only thing that subtracts your actual time is jail time. If you do the jail time,
Yeah, they can't.
right, then they can never go over what we have said the maximum is. However, probation, if it's
last
if
forever.
it's 1 year probation for an M3, you could do 364 days, violate, and I can restart a whole 364 or a whole 365, and I
do
can
it again
that
forever.
until I decide to either let you go. And there are some times where I've literally won the argument, like, Judge, what are you gonna do? We're gonna be back here again 5 years from now. Like, look, this is possession of a drug that she clearly still on.
Right.
Right. So she's still in the midst of her struggle. What we're doing with probation ain't working.
Yep. So
But no investment is being made in
Exactly.
the actual services to get her through the addiction or through a
Correct.
program or programming, or you just get a piece of paper and say, call this number, and that's it.
Right, but I would rather us take the money from if we shut down all the probation, all of it, just let it go, probation and parole,
put it into education.
and put it into education, or put the money into the, like, if we just shut down certain things, like, listen, the police officers, they need to be educated on the law. They need some lawyers, okay, because the police, unfortunately, they look at their job incorrectly the way I see it, right? They think that they're there to protect. They're not. They're not supposed to be protecting people. The way that the law is written, they almost can't do anything until
Crime has
you have
happened.
committed the crime, right? The only thing they're supposed to do, if they're there and they can stop it, yes, stop it. But they're so bad at that, I kind of don't even want them to. Just investigate. That's all they're supposed to do. They are supposed to find out information, bring it to us, and let us, the lawyers, decide what we think should happen. That's our job. But they are conflating theirs with ours. Now they're charging people with things that they should never charge them with. And now the system is so slow that by the time if you just arrest people and throw them in, by the time I can get to you or do what I need to or convince the DA that, there's a problem here, you've been in jail or you've been in this system for 6 to 8 months. Easy. It's a waste of time. We're wasting time. I win too much.
We're wasting
I should
money.
not be winning this. The fact that I win so often means the system is wrong all the time. I
That's
only
the problem.
win when they're wrong. I win all the time. This brother's only got one jury trial under his belt. I told him every word to say. He said it. He won in a case where he should have been found guilty of something.
Oh, he was guilty.
He was found with a mountain of marijuana and a gun, but because the police refused to just tell the truth, we played and he's clearly lying. He's clearly lying. And once somebody's clearly lying, it's hard to rehabilitate them. So we just need to educate them. I don't think they're even meaning bad things. I just think they need to be educated right. And if lawyers were looking over their shoulders a little closer, I think they would be so much more efficient at what they did.
Well, I think they feel like people are looking over their shoulders too much. That's the argument that I get.
We should be.
We should. I
We
totally
have
agree.
to. We have to.
We should live over their shoulders.
Right. Somebody needs to live over ours, over mine. Right.
Everyone has to be accountable.
Exactly. That's the point.
No
of the
one is
government.
above the law.
Exactly.
Except the law.
No. The point of
The
it.
currently way it's set up.
Well, yes, that's because I don't think our checks we actually use as checks, right? The government is supposed to check itself, right? That's why you have to work together, because the only way that our forefathers actually wanted things to change. Because if not, then one person, one side can always run things. No, we don't work together enough, and that's why change is slow.
So I don't want to get off education too quick because I feel like we kind of went down.
Okay, come on.
Yeah, my bad.
No, you're fine. Because I want to go back.
Yeah, my bad.
Because this is something that I truly believe in more than anything. Like he knows. All I ever talk about is if we just cared more about education, it's the first step to solving not
a lot of
clearly
problems.
not all the problems we have as a society, but being educated can get us over some of these humps. Like, hey, the election was stolen. I don't know. I'm not being funny now, but if we had better education, maybe people wouldn't believe that the elections are stolen. Is all I'm trying to say. So, just for our viewers, because listen, not everybody knows Philly, right? We do, but they don't. Mm-hmm. So what, in your opinion, what is education like in Philly, right? The public education system.
I mean, we have a struggling public education system. We do not invest enough money in our children. That has been my long fight forever. We don't pay teachers enough. We don't have enough support staff. Our buildings aren't good. They need to be upkept. But people made decisions not to do that for generations. Yeah. The reason we have poor air quality, schools with mold and asbestos is because someone made a decision, a policy decision, not to do the investments on the infrastructure of our school system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is crazy.
It's documented. And now here we are with less money trying to fix buildings that have been deteriorating for decades. We have a growing population. Mm-hmm. We don't have enough teachers. We don't pay teachers enough. You want somebody to go to school for 4 to 6 years,
right,
to come out, make $45,000 to chase kids around all day, right? Then work in the building,
right,
with all of these concerns, problems.
Yeah.
From 8 to 3, then go home and check homework as well, and do after school programs for $55,000 a year.
But Kendra, they get summers off.
You need a summer off.
They
but
get
what's-
summers off. It's
And
not that
most-
hard.
and the
It's not that
reality,
hard.
A large number of teachers still have summer jobs.
No, I know.
No, and
I'm only
And they
kidding.
work in bars. They do all other jobs
yeah.
because keep in mind you're graduating with $100,000 worth of debt.
Yeah.
You can't buy a house.
Correct.
You're paying back student loans. You know, and we don't pay people enough. Like, we have to care more about our kids. And the only way we can show it is about making investments in education. We have no problems investing in everything else.
Everything.
Right.
Everything.
Because
Everything.
but in my opinion, it's just because everything else shows return fast, right?
It does.
The education is a long. The
What we
education is
see
a
right
long
now
term
in
return.
Philadelphia,
Yeah.
Thank you.
What we see right
This
now in
is the
Philadelphia
return.
is the return on investment.
Oh, no, I
Keep in
agree.
mind, Governor Corbett, back in 2008, I think the number is right, he divested billions of dollars from public education. When you do the math, those children that came up through that system are our shooters and folks that are filling up our prison systems right now. So we did an investment. We chose what we wanted to pay for. We wanted to pay for prisons because nobody had problems. The state didn't have problems building
go.
prisons
Yes.
across the county to send our kids from Philly across the county for other places in the Commonwealth to make money.
Sure.
Correct. How do we fix it? What do we do now that the money is there? Now that the problem is there? I think one thing in government that kind of bugs me is that when we do something, we may change a law to try and fix the idea, right? But the problem is we never actually fix the original problem that the first lack of the law created. You can't just change the law and say, okay, well now this is going to fix it. No, you have to change the law first. Hope for the best because there's a lot of things when you put in a law, it's never going to work perfectly because there are imperfect people within it. Fine, that's understood. But we are never going to give ourselves a chance if we don't fix the original the people who are disenfranchised now because of the lack of money, we have to help them now while they need that help.
So that's my question. Is
How
it
do we
just
do
money?
both?
Do you think it's just money?
It's,
In your opinion?
At this point, it's everything. Like
Yeah.
money
Would money help, I should say?
Money would help, but right now we have a teacher shortage.
How do you think we can solve that? Is my question. Is it promising to pay teachers more? Because what I think I see a lot of is people aren't even going to school to be teachers now.
Right. Why
Because
would
there's-
you?
Why would you do that?
Why
Listen,
would
I
you?
agree. I mean,
Right.
honestly, you could not, and this is no disrespect to teachers, right? But you cannot go to school and get a job that pays that. And you
Yeah.
cannot have to have the debt and all the other issues that you're talking about.
And we have teachers that are walking away from the classroom.
I was going to say, what's the
Because-
incentive?
Right. So we need to, and I hate, we use this phrase so often, reimagine. But the problem is we have no imagination of what education can
Oh,
be.
I agree.
Amen.
You know, like even if the money came down the pike, what would we do with it? And when I think about, I
Right.
said a lot about Philadelphia schools, but there were rural schools across the Commonwealth that are worse off than some of our schools.
You don't have to tell me.
And
That's
you
where I'm
talked
from.
about why
but
people
that's where I'm
believe
from.
that the election was because those same children didn't get what they needed
I know.
in our education
I know.
system. But
Right.
some of those same smaller counties are making money hand over fist off a prison system. And they still chose not to invest in education.
Sure.
And I think there's multiple things. We need to elect folks that give a damn.
Amen.
Because if
good
you don't
start.
send your kids to public school, you don't understand what it's about.
Right.
You don't care about that.
I agree.
Right.
You know, like you cut a check to Penn Select or whatever, Friend Select, Penn, whatever, and it's over. I'm done with it, right?
Yep.
Right.
Pay
Yep.
for a nanny, au pairs, and all that. And I'm not knocking what people
No,
with
no.
money do.
Of course.
But the reality, that's not the majority.
Right.
So until we care about the majority of our kids,
Correct.
we won't see a difference. And I think it takes everybody. You talked about was like Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Like everybody has to pay their fair share.
Exactly.
And I know it gets hard. But listen, as you say, as you begin to climb up, you see the taxes are huge. When I looked at my, like, what? who are these people? Right? Right? But the reality is like there are people that are way above where we are. Their
Oh, yeah.
them dollars is taken out of those billions of dollars won't hurt them at all. I just introduced something around wealth tax and I got a lot of pushback, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
Because the problem is we have no problem taxing people's wages. Who are wage workers?
Oh, of course.
Everyday people.
Of course.
This particular bill is taxing your wealth. So we're talking about your investment
investments,
money
your stocks.
that's sitting there.
Yeah.
We're talking, what is it, $4 on 1,000? You're not going to miss that.
Let me
That's
ask
less
you.
than Starbucks.
How
That
do you?
is- that's
So I have a
what was
question.
that bill?
But I have a question. How do you propose to do that? So like,
I think that was a bill, right?
no,
Yeah, we won't. We're waiting on a hearing for it.
Oh, okay.
No,
That's
but
I
what
was-
It's
I'm-
on a pause. No one's moving quickly.
but what I'm asking is, so let
They
me.
know how to sit me in a corner. It's
I
like,
just
yeah,
want to
we'll
hash it
let that
out.
sit.
So like, if you're gonna tax investments, what does that mean?
So that means that we're taxing stocks and bonds.
And how? Just by holding them, or is it if you take loans on them? Or
No.
interest?
When you file your taxes and you have to report on it, that
Yeah.
will make the determination how much you would owe
Okay.
to the city.
Is it like a percentage of your holdings or
Yeah,
something
it's
that?
like 0.004.
Oh Jesus, that's a lot.
You hear me? $4 on the
Sorry,
thousand.
I tend
Yeah,
to be.
it's-
I
that's
tend
his
to,
sarcasm.
I tend to be sarcastic,
That's
and
what
I'm
I
sorry.
said. Listen, I can run it down. Less than Starbucks.
Yeah, no, guys, I'm joking.
Less
it's not
than
a
a
lot.
beer.
Right.
And in some places, it could be less than a soda.
Yeah,
And that you're right. That would be a lot of money. Like that little percentage. That's the great thing about when you're wealthy is that like
You won't notice
Truly, you're not going to notice.
But
You're
let me
not
ask you this: is there any chance it passes? I mean, I know it's Philly, and there's more chance that it passes in Philly. But in your opinion, is there any chance?
There's always a chance. 'Cause keep
Yeah,
in mind, this
good
was
answer.
something that was already on the books.
Oh, okay.
So it was on the books, I think, 1997. And, people lobbied against it and got it removed.
Oh, of course.
And it was a state thing before it was a city thing. So Philadelphia was the last people to rescind that. So it's not something new. It's about reintroducing
Got it.
something that's needed.
Got
When we
it.
see our Commonwealth is struggling.
So that's the one thing too. I mean, because I know we kind of want to get into Shapiro too. Am I wrong to assume you back Shapiro?
Yes, I am supporting
Fair
Shapiro.
enough. I don't put words in people's mouths. So, the one thing Mastriano wants to get rid of is property taxes. Now, and hold on, yeah, hold on. I know, because I'm trying to, again, like this is me trying to figure this stuff out for myself, and then I put it in perspective. How is anybody else supposed to figure this out? Just
Right.
if you're not paying attention. So, listen, I understand the idea behind getting rid of property taxes, right? I do. I just older citizens who can't afford it or losing their homes. I don't know how big of a problem that is, by the way, but that's the argument I hear. But then the flip side is all that money goes to education. Am I wrong? Or is that
Yes.
is that accurate, right?
Yes, property taxes go
So
directly to
so you
education.
want to remove that and do
Give out free checks.
and do what? So here's
give
I
out
guess
checks.
I guess here's my question. Do you think getting rid of property taxes without somehow filling that hole is even responsible at this point?
It's completely irresponsible.
That's all. Thank you. I mean,
Even our most
I like being
wealthiest, our wealthiest school districts are funded off of real estate taxes.
real estate, exactly.
And so some of our best school districts in this Commonwealth benefit because their property taxes are high because
of course,
the value of their homes are higher.
yeah.
And to the point that our seniors would lose out. That's why here in Philadelphia, we have all of these programs that help assist low income, especially seniors, maintain their property taxes where they are. So there are things that could be done, but just
Of course.
removing property taxes is irresponsible.
Thank you. All right, that's it.
There's no way.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine someone would agree to that.
I mean, well, how do you when you're talking with these people? Obviously, you have to get people from the other side to agree with you so that we can vote
Do you?
these things in.
So this is a stupid
that how
question,
that-
real quick. Do you have any Republicans on the on?
Yeah, we
council?
have two.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was just. 'cause
Yeah, we have two Republicans
I was like,
on
be
council.
careful. There might not be anybody on the other side.
Well, but if everybody agreed, right, then it would just pass,
Which one? On
right? For this bill, that's
wealth
what
tax. The wealth
that's what I'm
tax is
asking
pretty
you.
controversial.
That's what I'm saying. What are the
Okay, so let me back up. We
what are
talked
the-
about this earlier. Like, in order to get elected, people write you checks.
right?
Who writes checks?
People that are going to be affected.
Okay,
Fair enough.
I'm just.
Fair enough. Yep, right to the point. Yeah,
But
you're
I
right.
checked with my rich people, and they thought $4 off $1,000 when it's your retirement money that you're living off
Sure.
of right now,
Right.
on top of your pension, is not bad. Making sure that the person that's coming to take care of you as you age in your house could read your medicine and give you the right medicine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, if you put it down to like
Right.
basics,
Sure.
just the basics. Like there are things that need to be invested in, and we all have to take responsibility for the next generation. And the next generation is important because as I get older myself, I want to make sure not just my kids are good, but all children are
Right.
good, because those are the folks that I'm going to depend on to care for my loved ones
Sure.
and me.
Said
To
that
cook
to-
your food.
I said that to my friend
You
the
like
other
to go
day.
to fine dining and restaurants. A lot of those folks are low-wage workers.
Absolutely.
So how can we create, a city where everyone gets to live and thrive here? And living and thriving, you said it's something similar earlier, it's not on the same level.
No.
Everybody's not going to be a 6-figure person or 7. We're always going to have low-wage workers, but how do we take care of them? How low the wages are? How can
Correct.
people can afford to take care of their families and live productive lives, not just here in city, in the Commonwealth?
Right. So here's a question I actually have, is that I think sometimes, so when we talk about the minimum wage, right, we need to raise that to something, but that really is only going to affect people who are working for the government, right? Most people don't work for the government. So even if we do
federal minimum wage, so it needs to be raised not just at a state level.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. That was kind of my point, though. Like,
Yeah.
most of us work like privately, though, right? Like, unless you work for the federal government, which is, I'm making this number up. I can't imagine it'd be more than 30%
What the?
of like how many people work for what percentage of our country? Like, it's not
It's
a
a small
large one.
percentage.
Small
It's a
percentage,
small
yeah.
percentage.
I mean,
so
it's
we're
a big
not,
number, but it's a small
right.
percentage.
That's so like. I believe there are more people that the problem is what you're really fighting. The reason why we need the government is because corporate greed will always exist, right? The millionaires and billionaires, the reason why we went into business is to make money, right? And then once we make money, we are never the ones. The business owners are never going to be the ones that feel the squeeze. When COVID hit and I had to start, tightening down, okay, we all felt it. But all I did was grind it hard, which put the squeeze on somebody else.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. So it always flows downhill. And then once maybe, that's what I'm saying. So we talked about it. Go ahead, I'll let you.
The concept of trickle down economics is what's
Right.
Like I was getting ready to say a word.
No, say the word.
It's bullshit.
Thank you.
Yeah, we get, you ain't got to be.
Because to your point, when you're up here and you don't feel it, it's not trickling down.
Right.
Dude, was
You're
I not
saving it-
just say
You're
we
saving
just
it in investments.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
And hiding it away somewhere.
Right.
In the meantime, the people that work not directly for you, but somewhere in your businesses are struggling, barely making it to work every day.
And you're
Those are the
stashing away
ones,
cash.
exactly. And those are the ones that are feeling the punch.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's why I keep it like I try and keep
Trickle-down
this
economics.
small, but like I can't even really hire anyone else because the truth is I don't have enough money to give somebody else like full time what I think would be fair.
Correct.
Right. I would basically
expensive.
just be able to, by the time I have to pay everything I have to pay, truth is I'm not rich enough to do it yet.
I get it.
So it is hard, and that's the part that makes me understand the business owner. But like when they're billionaires, it's the same idea, but they're not being realistic anymore. Like, dog, come on, you need to cut your prices down right now. That's really what it is. Like if gas is going up, and everybody's blaming the government.
Except
Government
they're
ain't getting
making
that
money.
money.
Except the gas companies make
Right, it's a
200%
private
profit
company.
last
And
year.
and listen, everyone talks about this idea of supporting people that are in need, right? Or supporting the less fortunate. No one talks about the billions and billions of dollars that we offer rich people in tax cuts. That's the biggest source of welfare that we have. No one talks about that.
Correct.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of times maybe lay people that don't really get into don't understand. Like when I'm always coming in like, these people get all kinds of tax breaks from everyone, from the city, from the state, from the federal government. They get to hide their
absolutely.
taxes. So we hired the president, didn't pay tax and didn't have to show them.
Right, but I mean, like the way that taxes work, though, right? It's not to hide. I'm trying to say this correctly. So essentially, I don't think they're doing illegal things, but the problem is they should be. Right?
It's not illegal.
Nobody. Right.
No, it's not illegal,
It's not
but
illegal.
it's
immoral.
It's immoral.
There you
It's
go.
very different.
Right.
I've
right.
learned the difference about what's legal
But
wasn't moral.
most things are legal.
But the
and you
whole
shouldn't do
point,
them.
the whole point is we already know what we do. We already know we Robin Hooding this, bro. You ain't gonna like it. So since you can't do it yourself, we gonna have to do it for you.
Yep.
That's the only way people with more money are going to give it away is if we take it. That's it. And you ain't gonna run on no, I want to pay more tax. Like, ain't nobody gonna want to pay more taxes ever. It's not gonna happen.
But they don't have problem taxing everyday people though.
Oh, never. No.
Because then people can use words like fair when it's not. Like I had a conversation where somebody was running. I won't his name, but he was running on the Democratic Party, and I had a conversation with him
about his education policy.
Policy.
That funny?
And he
was
said,
solid.
"Well, listen, if you just give everybody the same amount of money, then that's good. Then that's fair." I'm like, "Sir, that's not fair. That's not fair. Everybody's not on the same level right now."
We don't have to talk about fair. Let's talk about equitable.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like, how could you? And he said to me, "Well, if you go to run up that steps and one person is in a wheelchair, but they both can get up the steps, like, isn't that fair?"
No.
I'm like, "Sir, get up. Please get out of my face with this, because if me and you stood right here and we raced, would you feel fair? Do you think you give yourself a fair chance? You wouldn't. Does that feel fair?" You see, like, what I'm learning in my job is that it is so easy to see injustice when it's pointed at you. Yeah, but when it's pointed at anybody else, people seem to get blinded by like, no, that's fair. I'm like, okay, let me make it unfair for you. See,
So now I want to touch on a tough topic, I guess. Not really, because it's just more political talk. So all we keep hearing, especially with the election season, and I've been wanting to ask someone from Philly this, right? So you get you're the lucky one, because crime is so bad in Philly. And I say that, and I'm being sarcastic, right? And I'm sorry if I am, because I know crime's always a problem. But I'm also so sick of hearing, everybody needs to be tough on crime. Now this election is tough on crime. I'm tough on crime. You're tough on crime. We're all tough on crime. So couple part question. First, I mean, if you look at the stats, sure, I guess Philly has worse crime right now. But in my opinion, it's not really much worse than it's ever been, okay? Crime will happen, okay? The fact that you might have 10 more shootings this year in a city as big as Philly, and you're trying to tell me that there's this crazy problem. Listen, I'm not saying that there's not a problem, but I'm so sick of people, especially on the Republican ticket, using this as a way to get elected, right?
Right.
In your opinion, I mean, is there really? And I have a follow-up question, because it's actually about Larry Krasner, and just kind of your thoughts on something that's going on that I think is insane. Not with him, but in your opinion, do you think crime is much worse than it's ever been in Philly? Is it something that people should really be paying attention to when they're voting, right? Or is it something that you believe they're using just as just another talking point?
I think crime is an issue in Philadelphia and has always been an issue. And I think a lot of folks that are using it as a talking points aren't looking at it. I think there's an investigative study that shows that the percentage increase in Philadelphia in crime is far less than what we see in some of the surrounding counties,
Okay.
where the increase is significantly greater
Sure.
than what we've seen here in Philadelphia. But no one's going to tell you that story because it would be against.
Of course.
And I'm glad you brought this to me because, I lived through the war on drugs, and all of these other things. And I know what that meant.
Exactly.
That
That's
meant
what tough on crime
that everybody
looks like.
that I know that looks like me, male or female, anything you do, you're in jeopardy of losing your life. And when I say losing your life, I mean death by incarceration. Because once you get into the system, it's so hard to get out. You can't get a job. You lose your kids. You can lose your certifications or all of these things. It changes your life completely. And I've had so many people in my generation affected by that. So when I stand strong on what we need to do and I start talking about public safety, my public safety model is very different than what people talk about every day.
Sure.
I've lived through over-policing to the point until I started driving my city car, I always felt the threat of getting pulled over and harassed.
Sure.
That's my reality as a woman
Yeah.
of a certain age. Just imagine my husband, you know what I mean?
Your kids.
My kids.
Yeah.
Can I ask a
And it's
question?
real. My daughter drives a Malibu with tinted windows, this gold 2022. Like,
Yeah, I'll give you some quick tips. But in Philadelphia, my question, in Philadelphia, do they have all cameras, body cameras, and cameras on the cars?
We have body cameras. I'm not sure if all the cars have the cameras on the cars, but we do have body cameras.
Yeah, in my opinion, there should never be if the police are doing something, it should be recorded by them. Like that, it's the first thing that should be watching them. We have the technology, guys. Let's use what we have, and we don't need to physically watch them. We have cameras now, so like that allows.
We also have to make sure that we can have access to those records. Like who's
absolutely.
in charge of
Absolutely.
viewing those body cameras? And sometimes, we start talking about body cameras and not looking into the fine print.
Yeah, who stores them, who handles them.
Who handles them, who has access. And I think
we've been through that. We've had them destroy it.
I can imagine.
Destroy it.
Disappear.
Destroy it on accident.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And they knew the system was. So, this is one of our big
And then the
gripes.
judge will not throw the judge, when the watchers aren't being watched, what I'm supposed to do?
What do we do?
This is the remedy. You're supposed to throw this out. But again, I think the problem is we need to make sure that that we don't overreact. If the right one does throw it out, what I would hate to have happen is for their reputation. If let's say something happens and they say, you know what, sorry, I'm going to stick to the law. If that person gets out and does something, that is not on that judge. That is not that judge's responsibility to keep somebody in because of fear that they might do something in the future. Legally, you're not supposed to be doing that.
But it happens.
It always happens.
But it needs to stop.
I totally agree. Back to this conversation between what's legal and what's
And
moral.
Yes.
So I know we're running out of time, and I want to give time for Shapiro. But at the last question is, how do you feel as a council person for Republicans trying to impeach your district attorney? That's where I was going with this, because crime's so bad.
I had a feeling.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It wasn't something about him, but it involves him. So how do you feel being from Philly? I don't know if you voted for him, but I know
I
you might
am
be
a
close.
Larry Krasner supporter.
Oh, there you go. So how do you feel about it?
And then, you know what? For me, from the beginning, this was bigger than Larry. As the only third-party elected official in the city of Philadelphia with strong opinions that Republicans don't believe in.
Yeah.
So when you, across the state, don't agree with me, whether it's the wealth tax, whether it's on public safety, you can make a decision and East Bubblefuck about what I'm doing here in Philadelphia and impeach me.
Thank you.
That is completely ridiculous. And I think I was just totally appalled about the whole thing.
Fair enough. I wanted to bring it up on prior podcasts, but I was like, you know what? I'll save it because maybe we'll have a guest that'll be. And I was like, what a better person that? Because I know the answer.
That's what I said. This is
it's
bigger
insane.
It's bigger than Larry Krasner.
Yeah,
and I think, when elected officials felt that was okay, I'm like, did you read the small print? Do you realize that this has an effect and an impact on all of us? It's not about Larry.
That's what I mean.
It's about protecting our democracy.
So they can come and
as soon
impeach
as we
you?
start teetering and tattering and picking and choosing and picking
Now you're good.
and
you
being
can finish
immoral based on people's judgments and what you think is right, when we
Right.
allow people to go against our democracy, we have failed.
Exactly.
Yes.
We have
Thank
failed
you.
in government when we don't lead by the democratic process that you talked about our forefathers created.
Yeah.
And this
Correct.
is definitely a political stuff.
Yeah,
It is.
Thank you.
It is.
And yeah,
Go ahead.
just
No.
one. I was gonna say, since we have a couple minutes left, we're in Pennsylvania. We have a huge election coming up next week. Am I right? I better be right.
Tuesday, November
Tuesday.
8th.
Yeah,
Go
Tuesday.
to the polls.
One of the biggest, at least I think, races, at least from what we've discussed, is governor, because we know the makeup of the state. Who are you supporting? Now's your time, right? Because we're running out of time. So who are you supporting? Who do you like and why?
I am supporting Josh Shapiro. And I think in the beginning, people was like, how did you end up supporting Josh Shapiro? Because we have not always agreed on criminal justice reform.
Why not? If you don't mind.
I mean,
I'd love to hear
when I
why.
first- I support formerly incarcerated people. I've done a lot of work around abolition of prisons. When I first met Josh, he was like, he's the top cop. I said, that's not the right legal thing to do.
Got it.
But he was willing to sit down and have real conversations, not just with me, with formerly incarcerated people, with some of the juvenile lifers just that came home, some of the parents, some of the people that was, commutated.
Commuted.
That's the right.
Yeah. I think you're right. Though. We know what you mean.
Yeah. So,
Community doesn't matter.
and I said, my endorsement and support from you is going to come after you sit down and talk to my people. And he was willing to have long months worth of conversation and doing policy work. And his current policy was crafted between his staff and those folks. And he was able to win my endorsement because, like, I'm not co-signing on anything. I work too hard to get in this seat, and I give zero fucks about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But I care about my name,
Of course.
and I care about my people. And he knows this. And I hold him to it. Like we laugh about it now, but I'm like, don't make me look bad.
Right. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
See, that's exactly what I was saying. And I said, there's really only two things in life that can't nobody take away. It's your name and your word.
Exactly.
And I don't play about neither one of them. If it came out of my mouth, I meant it. Now, I will apologize if you bring me some information and I was wrong. I'm not above being wrong, but I don't like to lie. And it bothers me that as a lawyer, the first thing everybody thinks and says, which they say is a joke.
Yeah, you're a professional
But,
liar.
you lie all the time.
You're
I'm like,
professional. You get paid to lie.
I never lie. What do you do? Like, literally, my job is to ask questions. A question can't be a statement, so I can't even lie. Like,
Well, I look at lawyers different. I'm encouraging my daughter to do so because she's a good debater. And she will hold you to the fire. So I was like, I think you should
Stand
be
your
a lawyer.
ground.
Stand her ground every time. So, but like the reason I decided to support Josh Shapiro was that he was willing to have that real talk. Like I said, our first
Right.
conversation, he started with Top Cop, and I was like, yeah, that's not it.
Yeah.
And we moved from there.
I respect
and
that he was
genuine.
willing. Right.
It was hard conversations. It was some tears because it's real life story. When I talk about these, I'm talking about people I know.
Right.
Yeah.
People
absolutely.
that I break bread with. And he realized, and just who he is, kind of exuded through our months, years of conversation around this.
Sure.
And so, that's what we need in a governor. And I'm sounding like the doggone commercial, but I feel if I'm a co-signer on a politician, I want to be able to say that in my heart, I felt that was the right thing to do.
Fair enough.
Besides, the other guy's crazy too.
I was gonna say, did you get that opportunity to sit down with Doug?
Why?
I did listen.
Now, okay. Usually,
to ask these questions.
I believe in meeting with both people on both sides of the conversation. He wouldn't dare meet with me anyway. But
Understand.
we're
Right.
completely on polar opposites.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you
Right.
cannot be against a woman's right to choose. You cannot be no.
Fair enough.
I have no.
Fair enough.
words
Right.
for
We
him.
got too much.
got-
too long to go with that.
Right.
So that
Too much room to make
Yeah,
up.
but
I get it.
Kendra, Councilwoman Brooks, I appreciate your time. I
Thank
hope
you
that you come
so
back.
much.
I hope that this is the start of you coming through here, letting us know when you need us. You have my number. You need me, call me.
Will do.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'll check in again. This was fun.
I know. I have more questions. You have to come back.
Well, this is the person. My folks is here. This scheduled time. I'll gladly come back.
Thank you
All right.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, and thank you.
I had a dream, got a team, now they do this all day. George for Breonna Taylor was amongst us. We fight to shine light, so bright to fight injustice. Opinions big and small, we want them all, please confront us. Questions on the law, JJ, who you call, come and get your justice. Fight it for justice. Fight it for justice. Fight, whoa,
We keep on fighting.
Wanna know the law, you know who to call.
We keep on fighting.